The baby monitor had always been a silent sentinel, its blinking green light a quiet reassurance. When Sarah first brought home, she'd scoff at the thought of needing a smart camera. But James insisted. "Peace of mind," he said, placing it on the shelf above Lily's crib. Angled just so. At night, it would hum to life, infrared vision rendering the nursery in a palette of soft grays and shadows. For weeks, the camera captured only the mundane. A restless baby stirring, the occasional creak of the old floorboards as wind shuffled through the walls. Then came the Tuesday morning, when Sarah noticed something strange in the playback. She'd woken early, habit tugging her to check the app. The video played like any other night, until 2:43 a.m. Lily was asleep, arms splayed like a starfish, mouth parted in peaceful slumber. But the cradle, an antique heirloom passed down from James's grandmother, began to sway. Gently at first, then with a rhythmic insistence. Back and forth, back and forth. The way a mother might soothe her child after a nightmare. Sarah froze. There were no footsteps, no creak of entry, only the cradle, moving of its own accord. Her breath hitched as a faint. Almost imperceptible shoo-shoo filled the audio feed. Not mechanical. Human. She didn't tell James. Not that day. What could she say? That a ghost was babysitting their child? Later, she tried to recreate it, pushing the cradle and stepping back, watching how long it would rock, timing it. The camera didn't lie, but perhaps the mind did. That night, sleep came in shallow bursts. Sarah found herself staring at the ceiling, limbs tense beneath the blankets. James lay beside her, snoring softly, a comforting rhythm she clung to. At 2:43, she opened the app. Nothing, just the stillness of the nursery, the slow blink of Lily's breathing. She exhaled. Then the cradle moved again. This time it wasn't slow. It jolted, like someone had grabbed it too hard. Lily stirred, whimpered, then stilled. And then came the footsteps. Not loud, soft, deliberate, as if someone were careful not to wake the child. Sarah sat up so fast the bed groaned. James stirred. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Her hand clutched the phone, knuckles white. "Sarah, I think someone's in the house," she whispered. James shot up, adrenaline kicking in. He grabbed his phone, thumb already hovering over the emergency call button. But the house was silent. No broken glass, no creaking floors. Just the same old Victorian walls they'd always trusted. They checked every room. Nothing. No open windows. No disturbed locks. Lily still slept, untouched. The cradle still again. "It must be a glitch," James muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Maybe the heating kicked in, caused a draft. "Drafts don't whisper," Sarah said quietly, not meeting his eyes. They didn't talk about it again. But that night, James turned off the monitor. He said it was interfering with the Wi-Fi. Sarah didn't argue. She just listened, to the silence that felt too heavy, to the dark that pressed too close, to the slow, steady sound of cradle rocking in her memory. Long after the room had gone still, mornings came with sunlight and the illusion of safety. The nursery looked innocent again in the day, warm with pale yellow walls, shelves stacked with plush animals, and Lily gurgling contentedly in her crib. Sarah clung to these hours, convincing herself that exhaustion had blurred her perception, but doubt settled in like mold, quiet, stubborn, and always growing. She found herself watching Lily more often, not just through the monitor, but in person, lingering at the doorway while the child napped, listening. The house creaked as it always had, but lately there was a new sound, a kind of rustle behind the plaster, like someone brushing their hand along the inside of the walls. Too rhythmic to be pipes, too slow to be mice. She tried to dismiss it, until Lily began to wake up crying. Not the usual whines or hunger wails, but screams, sharp, terrified howls that made Sarah's stomach clench. She'd rush in, find her daughter soaked in sweat, eyes wide as if she'd seen something she couldn't understand. Each time, Lily pointed at the corner, the same one, the corner beneath the attic hatch. James was growing frustrated. "She's a baby, Sarah. Babies cry. Babies point." But she's not just crying. She's screaming, like something's there. Then maybe something is. Draft mode, I don't know. Get the attic checked if it makes you feel better. She did. The attic smelled of dust and old wood. She climbed up with a flashlight while James held a ladder. Cobwebs clung to the low beams. Boxes from his grandparents sat sealed under faded cloths. Nothing moved. No footprints. No sign of animals. Yet, in the far corner, above Lily's room, Sarah found something that made her skin crawl. A child's drawing, scrawled in faded crayon on the underside of the attic floorboards. The lines were crude, uncertain, as if drawn by a very young hand. A small figure in a crib, and a larger, looming shape beside it. Featureless, except for long arms and blank eyes. Beneath it, just 2 words. Still here. Sarah didn't scream. She couldn't. She simply backed down the ladder, legs trembling, and said nothing to James. That night, she reinstalled the monitor. Not the app, the physical unit. Tucked it deeper into the shelf, out of sight. This time, she didn't intend to watch in real time. She would let it record. Let the truth gather while they slept. The recording was ready by morning. She waited until James left for work. Waited until Lily napped. Then opened the file. Most of the video was uneventful. She fast-forwarded through hours of stillness, heart pounding. 2:43 a.m. There, the cradle began to sway again. Not violently this time, almost gently, soothing. Then something moved. Not a person, not a full form, but the shadows in the corner grew thicker, darker, as if the light bent around something that shouldn't have been there. A shiver passed down her spine. Lily stirred, whispered something, her voice barely a murmur. And then came the sound that shattered Sarah's resolve. A long, slow breath. Not hers, not James's. It came from right next to the crib. She paused the video, rewound, listened again. That breath, heavy almost, curious. The last frame before the clip cut, the static showed Lily's eyes open, staring directly into the lens. Her mouth forming a single word, hi. But she hadn't spoken that word before. Not ever. Sarah slammed the laptop shut. The silence of the house was now a threat. Every creak, every whispering gust of events sounded like watching. Something was here. Something had never left. Sarah didn't sleep anymore. She tried at first. Tried to tell herself that stress was twisting her thoughts into nightmares. But sleep was no longer a refuge. It was a place where the cradle rocked on its own, and Lily greeted empty air with smiles that didn't belong to her. A place where something unseen breathed too close to her daughter's ear. James noticed the fatigue in her eyes, the dark crescents beneath them. "You're spiraling," he said gently one evening, cupping her face. "You haven't left the house in days." "I can't," she whispered. "Not while she's in there." With it, James looked away, jaw tightening. He thought she was slipping, grieving the idea of safety, of control. But there was something else in his silence. Doubt, yes, but also fear. He'd seen the video. He'd watched the cradle sway. And while he refused to speak about it again, he no longer used the word glitch. That night, she waited for the whispering hour. That's what she called it now. 2:43 a.m., the time when everything changed. She sat in the hallway, just outside Lily's room, wrapped in a blanket, flashlight in hand. The monitor beside her glowed faintly, a soft feed of static and shadows. The house was too still. As the minutes bled into silence, Sarah felt the pressure build, a weight in her chest, like the air itself was holding its breath. She stared at the nursery door, barely blinking. Nothing moved, not a creak, not a whisper, until the laughter, faint, childlike, from within the room. Her hand jerked toward the door. The monitor flickered. Inside, Lily was still, asleep, but the laughter had been real. She pushed the door open slowly. The air beyond was colder, sharply colder, as if winter had crept in beneath the floorboards. Her breath fogged as she stepped across the threshold. Lily lay in her crib, eyes closed. The cradle beside her was rocking, not empty. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the crib's edge, heart pounding so loud it drowned out reason. She could see nothing, and yet there was an indentation in the air, a subtle warping of light where the cradle moved, like heat over pavement, like something invisible sat there. And then, asterisk the whisper, asterisk, a voice, low and almost tender, not in her ears, but in her mind. Asterisk, she knows me now. Asterisk. Sarah gasped and stumbled back, nearly knocking over a toy chest. The cradle stopped. The air shifted and the pressure lifted. Lily stirred, yawning, then curled deeper into her blanket. Sarah backed out of the room, hand over her mouth, and shut the door behind her. Not hard, too loud might anger it. She collapsed in the hallway. The monitor still clutched to her chest. James found her there an hour later. She tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. "I'm calling someone," he said. "A priest, a medium. I don't care what it is." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. Her gaze was locked on the monitor screen, because for the first time, the camera was no longer static. It was moving, sweeping slowly from side to side, as if whatever was in Lily's room had picked it up and was looking through it. At her, James made the call the next morning, his voice firm despite the tremor beneath it, not to a priest or an exorcist, but to an old friend, Elena, a psychologist turned parapsychologist who'd once worked with trauma survivors claiming paranormal residues. He used to tease her about ghosts. Now, he clung to her number like a lifeline. She arrived at dusk. No robes, no incense, just a calm presence, her voice soft and grounding. "Whatever's here," she said, walking through the house slowly. "It's not trying to hurt you. It's watching, listening, maybe waiting." "For what?" Sarah asked, her voice raw. "For you to listen back." Sarah led her to the nursery. Elena stepped inside, stood still, and breathed deeply, as if tuning herself to something Sarah couldn't hear. Then she moved to the cradle and placed a hand on its curved wood. "Cold," she murmured, "but not hateful." Sarah told her everything. The whispers, the breath, the drawing in the attic. Elena listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in a worn leather book. When Sarah finished, Elena said quietly, "You're not haunted by evil. You're haunted by grief. Not yours. Someone else's." She knelt beside the cradle, then looked up. "Who owned this before you?" James paused. "My grandmother. It was hers as a child, then passed to my father. He had a twin sister. She died in infancy. Pneumonia. She was only 6 months old." Sarah's heart skipped. "Does your family talk about her?" "No," James admitted. "My grandmother refused. She said the house should forget." Elena nodded solemnly, but the house didn't, and neither did she. That night, at Elena's suggestion, they brought Lily into their bedroom. Elena sat alone in the nursery, a candle flickering beside her. She laid the old drawing on the floor and whispered gently, like one might to a frightened child. "You're not forgotten," she said into the shadows. "You're not alone." The air shifted just slightly. The cradle rocked once, then stillness, heavy and complete. The next morning, the nursery was warm again. Light poured in freely, and the cradle no longer moved without touch. Sarah stepped into the room with Lily in her arms, heart braced for cold air or whispers. But there was nothing, only sun, only peace. That night, the monitor showed stillness. At 2:43 a.m., Lily rolled over and murmured something. Sarah leaned closer to the speaker. "Night, night, lady," the baby said, and smiled in her sleep. And from the hallway, just for a moment, Sarah thought she saw the faint outline of a child, no older than Lily, standing beside the door, watching with calm, quiet eyes. Not a threat, just a guest. Finally seen, finally ready to go.